everybody, and welcome back to the Games Done Quick Hotfix. This is How to Train a Speedrunner. Before we get into the show tonight, just want to give a few quick announcements. AGQ 2023 Online is coming up very soon. It is January 8th to 15th. Prize submissions are open from now until December 30th, so be sure to get those in if you want to submit a prize. You can go to gamesdonequick.com for more information on that. As well, the schedule for Frost Fatale 2023, GDQ's next all-women speedrunning event, is out right now. You can use !Frost in chat to learn more. With all of that said, we are joined by Laura D. Bunnykins tonight. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good.
What are you here to teach us tonight?
Tonight, I am going to be teaching the speedrun for OneShot, both the World Machine Edition and the original. There's a big few differences, but the game itself is generally the same, so I can kind of teach both at once.
Fantastic.
Which, it's something I'll explain the big differences. It's a bit of a weird, clarification, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself.
That's totally fair. Whenever you're ready, if you have anything you want to say before you want to start, feel free. Otherwise, whenever you're ready.
All right, so I guess it's time to say the thing that I said I didn't want to get ahead of myself on. So essentially, I'm specifically today showing off OneShot World Machine Edition, which is a remake of the game made for consoles. This is not the original version of the game that was released on PC all the way back in 2016. And there are two major differences between these two versions. The first one you're seeing is the movement. My movement is very fluid and easy. The original game was made in RPG Maker, so it's very tile-based. You can see the tiles on the ground here of this area I'm in right now. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. However, the maps and everything else, in terms of the route and the solutions to the puzzles, are the exact same. So outside of the movement, this tutorial will work perfectly as a glitchless any % tutorial for the PC version of the game as well. And something that will help string that along is the other big change between the two versions. The original version, not only is it a PC game, but it does some very funny things with your computer. So to make it work on consoles, they kind of needed to rework the entire desktop system. So instead of me needing to desktop capture to show off how the game interacts with your computer, I will have it all very solidly on my game screen at the same time. A lot of things when you're running the PC version, you can set up ahead of time to make it easy to kind of mitigate needing to use the desktop features. However, in World Machine, it is an actual skill. You need to be able to navigate this while playing a little bit, so it's also teaching a little bit extra for those that decide to pick this version in particular up. I love both versions. I've been running this game since the Steam version basically came out, so I can't wait to teach that game. Or this game, rather. That being said, I'm going to move over to a different Switch profile to start the run, because on the first boot up of the game, there is a little bit of a tutorial on how this desktop system works, and that is a good place to start. It's a computer, really. It's not too complicated to get used to, and the game, again, tells you everything you need. So on top of using the controller to control what will eventually be the game, the right side of the controller, for the most part, the right stick and the ZR button act as cursor movement as well as click. So that's kind of where the big management part comes in the run, because you're playing the game with your left stick while controlling the computer itself with your right. But there's not too much computer interactions, so it'll stay fairly simple. I'm going to change the brightness settings a tiny bit because my eyes are not great. But time usually starts when we click this start button right here. So the timer in the run hasn't technically started yet, and before we do that, I want to take a look at a few settings. Default movement run is just easier. Colorblind mode makes a few of the puzzles a lot easier. So I definitely recommend turning that on, otherwise you're making the run just arbitrarily harder on yourself. And the last one is skip text. This is just a built-in turbo button. This game is very lore-heavy and has a lot of dialogue, so a turbo button's nice. It was originally implemented on the PC version in 2019 after we found a method to mash through text that required us to rotate our control stick, and the dev was like, I don't want you guys breaking your hands.
Oh.
Yeah. The last thing I'm going to do before I get the run started is I'm going to open a document window and put it right about here. There's a file that gets created with a password about 5 minutes into the run, and it's going to appear right here. So I'm just going to get it prepared now so I don't forget it once the game starts. And the timer technically starts when I click start. So we're kind of technically in the run now. However, the opening section is very quickly you're going to see what's happening. So, basic quick controls. You have your movement. VL on the controller is my skip text. I have a pause menu, an inventory menu, and then I can confirm and cancel. So, the big thing of this game, if you've never played this game before, and you're like, what am I watching? This is a puzzle game. It was made, again, originally an RPG Maker, but there are no, battles, and the entire thing is solving puzzles, and a lot of those puzzles have to do with combining items with each other or interacting with your environment, such as once we get this TV remote, we just want to bring it up to this window, and we can see the numbers. When you're holding down the turbo button, it can be kind of hard to read these numbers quickly if you aren't used to them. However, it's something that just takes practice, and you don't even have to do a full run to practice that. You can really just, mash that window until you are able to read faster. However, once we put the password in the computer, we want to grab the branch here, leave the room, go down to the fridge, and then combine the bottle of alcohol we get with the branch we picked up so that we can make a torch for the fireplace. And that is going to be the big puzzle of this area here. The rest of this is kind of a story thing. We're going to be picking up this light bulb, which is, in the context of the world, our goal is to return the sun to the world, and this is the sun. I'm not going to get too much into the lore during this tutorial because, you know how I said I've been speedrunning this game for 6 years? Yeah, I don't know it. I know a little bit of it. I try my best to explain it, but every time I explain it differently. It's a beautiful game, and I definitely recommend playing it yourself. I don't know what happens.
I vaguely remember what happened.
That's fair. But with us getting the light bulb, we're now in our first major area, and the first major area introduces something pretty big. I'm going to move up here, and we are going to gain access to fast travel, which is exactly as it sounds. You press pause, you have a map, you can fast travel between. This is incredibly helpful because a lot of these maps are not too big, but we need to go across repeat areas a lot. And the way fast travel works, you always go to a specific point on the map, and it's very easy to make use of that. So, coming into the other big thing, I mentioned movement, I mentioned puzzles earlier. The last big thing is making sure you know what dialogue options you have to press. So I'm going to go into detail when it matters what dialogue options I press, such as this example. There are 4 world-building questions we can ask. We only need to ask the third one, because this will introduce Nico to the player. This game, in its storytelling, breaks the fourth wall to have Nico interact directly with the player. So here's the scene where we get introduced to each other, and then as soon as we get through that, we can just press B and not do the rest of the lore questions. With that being done, we're going to go to sleep. This is just another world-building mechanic, but the thing you have to be ready for is when the game closes, you need to open it immediately. PC versions have been recently gifted with an in-game timer, so that this stuff with like the loading times is not part of the run anymore. But on this version of the game, you need to be ready to press that as fast as possible. A lot of people will do their runs entirely with the game in windowed mode like this, so that they can see their desktop at all times. However, that's not really a requirement if you want to have a big screen like this, and I figure that having a bigger view of the game is better for a tutorial. This conversation with Nico is another one where there's a specific set of dialogue options we want to do. The first time we have a split path, we want to press the bottom option twice, and then the top option, and that's the fastest way through that dialogue tree. We can pick up this metal bar and then fast travel back to the outpost. And this is where fast traveling gets really, really integral to not just routing, but also strategies. I'm going to be doing what's called a super fast travel on the next screen. So I'll take a little bit to explain this one. Essentially, I mentioned earlier that the point you fast travel to on a map is the same every time. So you can see this map, it's pretty long walk over here to get to these railroad tracks. It's like a 4-second walk. So what you usually want to do, instead of walking that whole distance, is fast travel off the screen and back on, and you are instantly there. And we use that a lot because it cuts out a lot of walking, especially in the PC version of the game. Like I mentioned, it's on the RPG Maker grid. It saves even more time, because what this game loses in smaller optimizations compared to the PC version, it makes up massively in movement. Using that to our advantage in both versions of the game is very important. We do another super fast travel there to go to Silver's house and pick up the screwdriver. And this is another interesting thing to point out real quick, is I'm going to interact with this mines from the right side of the doorway. And the reason I do this is because Silver has to walk less. So, 2 things to keep in mind about NPCs is, 1, they're always going to be walking instead of running. I mentioned earlier that we do have a run and a walk. They're always going to be walking instead of running. But B, they are still on a tile. They don't move like a normal like we do in this version of the game. They are also on a tile grid regardless of what we're playing. So a lot of points in this run, if an NPC moves, we kind of need to manipulate where we interact with something that makes them move, so that we don't make them walk longer than they need to, because that's just more cutscene time. So once we're in the mines, we need to pick up this camera and then interact with this little ledge here. And then we'll leave the mines. That ledge will be very important in the true ending part of the run. It's where the second playthrough massively splits up from the first. But for now, we just want to pick up the camera and use the crowbar to open this box. And this is where menuing comes in. So the thing is, it's slow in a game like this where you need to do a lot of menuing to constantly like do one thing, close the menu, do another thing, close it again. So we try our best to like stockpile items and use them up all at once. So once we get that battery from the crowbar, what I'm going to do in this room is unequip the crowbar, combine the screwdriver camera, put the lens in the battery, and then charge the battery with the sun, and then equip the battery, all in one really quick movement. And that's kind of the big flow of the run, is stockpiling the items and then doing everything at once with them. That being said, we have the other big computer interaction here. So we're going to talk to this computer, and this is where the document I mentioned earlier gets created. This is a password to a safe. So what we need to do is open it, and then what we try and do in this version of the game is I can still control my character when I'm not tabbed in. So you can see here. So what usually happens is we try and walk up to the safe here, well, scrolling this down to the bottom of the notepad to read the code at the bottom here. So you can see here, when we teleport into the cliffs, if we hold straight up, there's this little edge here, but if we are just a little bit to the right, we walk clean up to the safe. So I'm going to try and show this off one more time. Usually as soon as we do the teleport here, we go, we adjust right a little bit, we read the code, and as you see, I adjusted too far right and I hit this ledge, but 108378, and I'm running up the ledge here, and then I can type in the code. The code for the computer at the beginning is one of 2 luck-based codes, and that was the other. Everything else, every puzzle solution, is set in stone for the rest of the run. That being said, I messed up a little bit there. You want to click the second dialogue option on the first branching text there. However, there's still something major in terms of time save here. If we walk down just a little bit, we're going to activate a cutscene. However, this safe gave us a gas mask, which gives us access to the northern parts of the map, so we don't actually need to watch that cutscene. We can just teleport to the docks and go through the northwest part of the map instead of the northeast. This screen is really easy in World Machine Edition. You can just kind of hug the right side. In the PC version, the collision on those little pawns is a lot meaner. And once we get here to the dormitories, this is where the other really big thing about fast traveling starts to come into effect. As you can see right now, I'm in the inventory menu. If I press pause, I can go straight to the pause menu without needing to do like a cancel back to the overworld movement. So a lot of the time, what we're going to start doing when we can is equipping an item in the inventory and then immediately pausing to fast travel. So once we're in the dormitories, we want to equip the bottle, fast travel to the swamp, grab this smoke geyser, put the bottle, or put the smoke in the bottle, move up to the little hospital here, grab the syringe, and then run really long right to another screen, and then we're going to do another like super fast travel to the swamp to get another item, and then fast travel back to the old factory. This is usually called an extended fast travel, where it's kind of like a super fast travel, except we do something in the middle of it. In this case, what we're going to do is equip the syringe, go to the swamp, and fill the syringe with water before going back to the old factory. And if you're even on top of your game, you might remember to equip the crowbar before going to the factory, because you do need to break into the pack. However, once we grab these gloves and that sponge, that is the end of this stockpile. So I'm going to combine the syringe and the bottle, combine the acid and the sponge, and then equip the sponge and go to the docks and talk to this robot twice. The cue I use for this robot is I keep mashing the interact button, and when the sponge disappears from the bottom right, that means it's being used in the cutscene. And then soon after, that second emotion prompt pops up above robot. That's how I know the cutscene's about to end. We can go to lookout point and talk to Silver, where we get the amber, which is a really important item. I also mash interact there because we do need to do an extra cutscene with Silver. She doesn't let us leave the house otherwise. I hopefully... What you want to start that cutscene before she walks away from you, because she will walk away from you. You saw her try. But thankfully I got it. We have the amber. We can equip it, go to the docks, and once we show the amber to the robot, that's going to be the end of the first area. So the Barrens is definitely a very big choke point. In Glitchless, there's an area I'd consider even harder. And in the World Machine Edition, every glitch that is in the PC version was patched. So you guys are going to get the full run through that area. But Barrens is a really difficult part of the run. And once you're through there, the later parts of the game are a lot more relaxing. The Glen is my favorite area, both casually and in runs. And it's a lot simpler compared to the Barrens. So it's going to take less time. if you're holding turbo during these long cutscenes, they'll fade out as soon as they're able, so yet another thing that mashing can help save. And then here's a really weird screen. So essentially there's this character right here who is missing his brother, or his sister, rather. And when you interact with a certain, like, vertical line here, that's when the character will walk over to you and talk to you, saying, hey, I'm missing my sister. However, once he does that, he will walk back to an origin point on that horizontal, or on a different vertical line before you're allowed to move again. So you want that origin point is around here, about like a tile below this lamp, and about 2 tiles to the left. So you can see him walking away from me. The longer you're on the screen, the more he can walk around and get lost. So I'm going to go back to that screen one more time. But the way I do this screen in this version of the game is that I walk kind of like this through these trees below this stump, and then I talk to him here. And as you can see, he barely moves. In the PC version of the game, you notice that until I talked to Calamus here, I didn't get the fast travel point, the forest, at all. In the PC version of the game, you get this fast travel point instantly upon entering the screen, and the super fast travel leads you, like, right here, where you want to walk down a little bit so that he doesn't walk up to talk to you if you interact with him right here. But it puts you in a near perfect spot to just run to him, he runs back to his origin point, and then you head down right. And that's... in a game like this, with not much luck, you really need optimizations like those. Because that's the difference between, like, you know, getting record and being a minute off of it. And this game's any percent is only, like 26 minutes. So every detail kind of matters. Especially, again, in the PC version, being on a grid, it's even, like, less random. So those details are huge. The next area we want to go, though, is to the bottom of these ruins. We want to give Maze the sun, because this will kind of free us up to do the rest of the things in this area. There are 2 major goals on top to this area. On top of getting Calamus' sister back, we also need to find a way to get through the gate to the refuge. This robot has a scroll we need to sign in order to go through the gate, but he lost his pen. Fortunately, those 2 things are correlated, but the first thing we do is we go to this part of the ruins, and we have this. So this grid here, when you step on a tile, it lights up. When you step on it again, it unlights up. There's another computer, like the one that gave us the safe code in the Barrens, that tells us the solution to this puzzle. However, like I mentioned, with the safe code and the computer code being random, this puzzle's tile layout is not random. It's the same every time. So it's just a matter of remembering that pattern. And if it makes it easier on the console versions of this game, the D-pad only goes 8 directions, so it's very simple to remember it that way. And if you want to kind of equate it to the PC's grid system, however, I still do it on analog, but it's whatever works. You want to line up with this top row, and then kind of go in a circle like this. And then once you're at the bottom part of the circle, when you're on the middle tile, you need to step down, step up 3 tiles, down 2, and then finish your circle. So the shape is a light bulb. Funny symbolism. But it's a fairly simple circle. You just kind of have to remember to unlight the corners, because you can't really... The only alternative way to, like, break into this area would be, like, to go around like this, and that's just way slower. So a simple circle is all you need to take. And then we have Alula, Calamus' sister. So we can hand in that half of the quest whenever. However, we still have another part we need to do, which is the ram herding, which is kind of like a Pokemon strength puzzle. So we're going to go up here, offer to help herd the rams. And once we get down here, so when you press A, it pushes the rams in whatever direction you're facing, or whatever direction you're interacting with them from. And we want to get all 5 of these onto the dark spots on the grass here. So I'm going to reset the puzzle real quick just to start it from the beginning, and I'm going to try and show it off in just one movement. So we push this guy down, push this guy left twice, push the bottom guy to the left, loop around to the top, push that guy to the right, push this guy all the way down, push this guy to the left twice, run back down, and clean up the rest of the spots. This puzzle has changed routes like 5 times in the past couple of years, but that is probably the most simple route to get down right now. Some of the other ones are pretty tricky and require, like... I'll go back there real quick to explain it, but essentially, like, as you can see, you can kind of create pathways depending on where the rams are sometimes. Of course, I'm blocked off because the puzzle's completed, but, like, this middle path here gets a lot of use, as well as this side path down here. If you have the ram on this spot, you can kind of like run up this set of tiles to go loop around. There's a lot of complications, but the method that I showed is the one that I consider the easiest and best one to do. And then the wool that you get from completing that puzzle, you want to equip it and talk to this trader to get the bottle of dye that I have now. And then once you have that, we're going to go back to the forest and talk to Calamus. Because I mentioned what we need to do to get out of this area is get a pen. And we have a bottle of dye, and for helping Calamus and Alula reunite, we are going to get a feather. So we can make a quill pen. However, there's one more thing, because this is something that a lot of older runners would forget a lot. It became a meme. The whole point of this game is returning the sun to the top of the tower. So before you leave the ruins, you want to make sure to go back down to this bottom area and grab the sun. Because we left it with Maze to retract the vines so we could save Alula, and it's still there. Many people have lost runs to this, and it's kind of silly to think about now, because the way the route works now, what we're going to do is we're just going to move back to the left and fast travel. But the route used to be slightly different, and it used to be much easier to forget that. That being said, now it's even more embarrassing if you forget that, so please don't. But once that's done, as I mentioned, move to the left out of the ruins, fast travel to the gate, and we do need to do the sleeping cutscene before we truly leave the Glen, but this one is pretty short. On the third dialogue input you have to pick the second option and then just keep mashing. So 1, 2, the bottom one here, and then 2 more after that. From there, when you leave the gate, you just need to combine the pen, or the feather, and the bottle of dye, and then equip the feather pen. And you don't even need to interact with the robot specifically, you just need to walk up to the doorway with the loading zone, and the game will automatically start the cutscene to sign the scroll. And we are on our way out of the Glen. So yeah, the Glen, a lot easier than the Barrens. The Barrens have a lot of complicated fast traveling and map movement that the Glen does not. Very simple, clean. The Refuge is tricky. So the refuge is split into two parts. The first part we're here now is the upper half. As you can see, we're kind of very high above the city itself. So our main goal right now is to get to the library on the main ground of the city. However, the elevator is down. So our job is going to be to repair the elevator. It's pretty simple. Essentially, you want to start with a super fast travel to the cafe that you're actually going to extend by going to the bottom left path here, which leads to the bed. We're going right back to sleep. Yeah, the game doesn't really care the time you take in between sleeps. It just cares that you do one sleep each area. That's a big prerequisite. If you try and leave an area you haven't slept in, it gives you like a pop-up. Nico's like, I'm tired. For this dialogue, just the fourth branching text, we want to press no, and that will cut this cutscene off early. And then we can finish the super fast travel to the cafe, where we need to pick up this empty coffee can. And then move up left. The apartments are kind of the big thing here. We're going to pick up 2 items that we need. So in this second long hallway, we want to go down here and pick up the scissors. And then in the third long hallway, the bottom door leads to the big apartment, which has these fridge magnets that we want to pick up. And once we have the fridge magnets, you can leave. In World Machine Edition, after you interact with this door to unlock it from this side, you need to like step away and step back to actually get through it. Just like a weird thing with where the loading zone is, but just a small movement-based note there. Once we step out of the apartments, we're going to do this craft now, so I'm going to equip the scissors and the cam to make the button, and then combine them with the magnets to make the magnetized button, and then fast travel back to the elevator deck and go to the office, where we need to tape the button to the magnets, or rather the magnets to the button, and that will function because the industrial grade magnet that was used to power the elevator is these fridge magnets are just as strong. So this upcoming code, we have another password code to put in. Unlike the first 2, which were random, though, this one is actually not random. This one is always going to be 63014. The PC version I've been mentioning, this game is a remake of, released in 2016 as a remastering of a freeware title released on June 30th, 2014. And that's why this elevator code is 63014. But also I bring this up now because I've been mentioning the PC version as an alternate version of this run. If you're playing the original 2014 version, this is a very different game. So, add more to the version confusingness, I guess. There's that to keep track of, but the PC version on Steam and itch.io is by far the most popular version currently. And to end off the upper part of Refuge, we have this elevator. You can continue to resume the awkward silence, however, with the... if you go through all 3 of these dialogue options, it actually ends the elevator ride, and that is shorter than the awkward silence. So, you just click those 3 options. You can do them in any order, it doesn't matter. And then we're in the ground portion of the refuge, and the ground portion of the refuge is the portion I mentioned that there is a glitch to skip basically the entirety of in the PC version. But in glitchless PC and in World Machine Edition, this is probably the most complicated area of the run. Mainly due to one puzzle that I will get into detail on when we get to it. For now, the route's fairly basic, though. We enter and exit this back alley to set up a super fast travel later. And by later, I mean right now. So when we get to the library, we travel the back alley, and we're kind of in the top of the alley. That skips a pretty important cutscene. Not important for us, thankfully, but what we can do is we want to pick up the lenses from that little area and then go up to the vendor street and then travel back to the library. And we successfully have super fast traveled past this very long walk that I'm showing off right now. And we can go into the library. And this is the big route difference between any percent glitched and glitchless on the PC version. We would, in the glitch category, you would just glitch your way past this cutscene trigger that's like where I'm circling right now. However, in glitchless, we need to do the intended way to get to the back of the library, which means that I'm talking to this robot, waiting for this phone call cutscene to end, and then get this. I have to interact with the cutscene trigger that you usually skip past in the PC, and go through another phone call cutscene where we're waiting for somebody to pick up the phone who will not pick up the phone.
This guy.
So, this is always a funny little place where you just kind of have to wait. It's a good time to drink water, which is a very important thing to do. But then we're right back out of the library. We go to Vendor Street, and because there's this giant camera here, and we need to get our picture taken. However, there are no lenses in the slot. So the 4 lenses we picked up, you need to find out the certain order to put them in the machine. It's always the same order. The thick one goes in the far left, the concave one goes in the middle left, the thin one goes in the middle right, and the convex goes in the far right, and then you flick the switch. And flicking the switch will allow you to take a picture and then grab it out of the middle, and we can continue on our way. Our current quest is to kind of make a library card, which we're going to do in a little bit more of a literal sense than you might think. But to do that, we need to get through a puzzle that a lot of casuals are maybe not a fan of, and speedrunners aren't a fan of it either. So this is the laser light puzzle, or the security system chest. Essentially what happens is these 5 lights turn on, and you can swap them between yellow, blue, green, and red. There's another, as a little colorblind mode thing, if it's off, all the lights will be the same shape, but they have different shapes if colorblind mode is on. So we can also denote them as the square, circle, diamond, and triangle. There's a few strategies to tackle this puzzle in a way where you can consistently clear it in 10 tries. Essentially what happens is once you pick a arrangement of lights, you interact with this lever, and it tells you how many of the lights are correct and how many tries you have left. If you interact with this lever 10 times and you still don't get it, it resets the puzzle for you, as a way to kind of restrict brute forcing it. The way to solve this puzzle, if you've ever played like a traditional mastermind game, you don't get told which lights are correct. When you interact with the switch, you just get told how many you have. So the traditional strategy we do is have all of them set to default, interact, see how many correct, this is 2, switch them all to the blue, we have 2, and then switch them all to the green, and we have 0. So we know how many of each light is in now, and we still have 7 tries. So essentially the goal is going to be interacting with each light individually and seeing what number changes. So right, like for example, this is 3, I switch this to a square, and this is 2. So this one not changing at all means that, hey, this thing isn't red or yellow, it's actually blue. And one of my blues might be wrong. So we knew this one was blue, but it still says 3, which means this one was blue. This one is probably like that. I mix those up. So this is a square, this is a square, and this is a triangle. I'm going to do a little bit of a practice thing here and close the game to save it in place so I can show off this puzzle more, but I just want to verify that I got it correct here. I did not. There we go. Yeah. Let me try that one again. On the console version of this game, you usually need to just break out of the whole menu in order to close it without saving. In the PC version, it's very easy to like import practice saves, but on this version, not so much. Oh, okay. It auto-saves when you complete the puzzle, so I can't get too much further into it on this file. But essentially the big thing to watch out for is the interaction between numbers. Because as I mentioned, you can tell not only... The big hint I'll give is not only to use the amount of lights you have correct as a clue, but also if you change one and it doesn't change the number here, then you know not only was the previous thing you tried incorrect, but so is the one you tried now. And you can rule out like multiple shapes or even an entire like set of shapes with just one hit of the button. Efficiency is kind of the name of the game here. The code is obviously random every time, so you're not going to always know it going in, and you just kind of have to be able to quickly identify what getting a certain number on the lock meant and solve the puzzle within 10 tries, because if you have to start the process of figuring out the light numbers over, that is just when you get sad. So once you get through the password lock there, you want to go to Kip's room, interact with the shiny thing on the bookshelf, and then talk to Kip, and that's going to give us glitter glue and Kip's library. So now what we need to do is interact with the photo and the glue to put the glue on the photo, and then interact with the sticky photo and the library card. And we've created a library card with Nico's face on it, which we can then equip and then bring to the library. You can actually do that in either order. You can put the glitter glue on either the card or the picture. However, for the sake of where the items show up in the order of the menu, it's just whatever's easier. Once we interact with the librarian, we can go to the back of the library. We want to unequip the card and equip the journal, and give the journal to George. George is a dice, and every playthrough you do of this game, she can be a different face from 1 to 6, and each one has its own personality with its own dialogue. With the turbo button being in the game now, that doesn't matter too much which face you get, but you can very slightly save or lose time depending on what version of George you get. Once we give her the journal, we want to go to the side room, go to sleep. This sleep dialogue doesn't have anything special in it. We're going to simply advance one text box and start moving again. So now we talk to George again. George is going to give us the result of the journal that she translated and give us a dice, which is going to be a third golden item to go with our amber and our feather. So now we can go into the final area of the game. Something I'm going to bring up in this area is that at the beginning of the game, I opened this documents folder here so that I could get to this document with the save code from Barron's. At some point before you get to the final part of the game, either during a cutscene like this one that happens right outside the library, or any of like the longer scrolling cutscenes that happen at the introduction to an area, you want to go to My Games OneShot, this folder right here, and just stick it in a corner, because a file is going to appear that we need to open as soon as it appears, once we are in the final area. And speaking of the final area, once we leave the library, we want to go to Vendor Street and go down to this staircase to get to the tower. If you're playing the game in full screen at this point, when you walk into this room in the tower, it's going to unfull screen, and the ground is going to be a giant red X. I wonder what that means. So yeah, you need to close and reopen the game here, and Nico will wake up in the tower. After a lot of cutscene here, and not a lot of cutscene, but more like a long pause with intermittent text boxes, you're going to be able to start moving again. You just want to hold down right, and then you'll find a computer. And with this computer, once it shuts off, you can go into the bed here. And this will close the game again. As soon as the game closes, this Clover file will appear in the folder that I opened. In the original, if you're playing the PC version of the game, what you can do is before your run starts, you can go to this game's folder in like your Steam apps folder. And this folder will, or this file will always be there instead of you having to wait for this part of the game and then manually open it yourself. But in World Machine Edition, we don't have that luxury. We have to be prepared to open it ourselves and then as quickly as possible open the game again. So once we do that, though, the game will let us progress to this point. So we have a little bit more of like those pauses with dialogue boxes in them. And then we're going to get to talk to this computer and go through the major part of the tower, which is a very confusing part of the game during your first time playing it. Essentially what happens is you get this equipable clover, and this file goes transparent. And what you can do is you can overlay the clover outline on the piece of paper on the file with the equipable clover, and it'll tell you where to go. Thankfully, this area, it never changes where you need to go. So I will use the clover a little bit to show off that, but for the most part, we never need to actually use this. In this first area, what you need to do is you need to go left, up twice, to the right, back to the left, and then down twice. And then this area, the doors, is a little bit weird how we mark this one. However, just like the last area, it is the same path every time, so I'll explain how this works. You can see here the clover shows you what door you want to enter. However, we can't simply say, like, left door, right door, because as soon as we go into the next room, there's going to be more than 2 doors. So the way we usually mark this room is we number each door from left to right. So, for example, this left door is door 1, this right door is door 2. And then if there was a room with, say, 4 doors in it, we would have door 1, 2, 3, 4. So using that kind of notation, the order we need to enter these doors in, and I'm going to say the full number now, is 2312 122 422 3142 32. I will say that a bit slower. It is 2 3 1 2 1 2 2 4 2. I messed up there. 4 2 2 3 1 4 2 3, and then 2, the final 2 is just this room that only has 2 doors to go through. So there's a lot of door keeping track to do in that one. And then the last of the 3 areas in the tower is this little tile grid. It is as you can see here, 11 by 11 square. And when you cover the file with the clover, it'll show you what tiles you need to step on to complete the puzzle. The first tile here is this just vertical line down the middle. So make sure you're at tile 6 out of 11. It is an 11 by 11 square. The second tile shape is this kind of weird thing. What we usually do is we run to the right until we're on the grid, run to the top, and then start filling in from here. Again, make sure you're keeping count to number 6, because number 6 is where the middle of the grid is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because that's where you need to start running down. The third tile puzzle is pretty simple. It's just this dot in the middle. So we need to run until we're in the middle, like this, and then run back to clear out the squares that we do not need for the puzzle. The final puzzle is a light bulb shape, which is a lot more complicated than any of the other shapes, even the weird shape that came in second. So what we usually do here is we kind of use distance from the edge to count this one out. So when we start here, we want to run until we're up 3, zigzag up, and then to the right until we're 2 away again, zigzag down, and then run down until we're 3 away from the edge, zigzag down twice, and then run to the middle column, move down right, off the grid, to the left, up 2, and then left again until you're 2 away from the edge, and then zigzag back up to complete this square. And then you want to run to the right, move left, move right to clear out this tile that's supposed to be empty here. And then run in a circle where whenever you hit a corner here, you want to turn. So avoiding a square making like direct contact with a square from the outer circle. I will try and clean this up and show it all in one swift motion, because even despite how thoroughly this can be explained, there is a history of new runners getting tripped up by this pattern and losing minutes at the tail end of the run because they messed up slightly trying to make the light bulb. So starting here, you need to make sure to remember the small, like, extra tile here when you do the bottom zigzags, because you need to create this pattern at the bottom. And then I messed up there, but once you're here, you just run left and right to delete the tile that's supposed to be empty and run a quick circle. And that is the final, like, actual big puzzle of the run. So once you get through that, you grab the light bulb with a little bit of dialogue. You run up here. And this is just the same layout as the opening game house, so you just need to run to the door on the far left, and then run around this spiral while holding the turbo button. And then go into this elevator. Funny story, there's another area where you can go out of bounds in PC here. In the PC version, just at the tail end of this run. It doesn't save too much time because there's not much of the first ending left. But after matching a tiny bit through dialogue options in this elevator, this is where the first ending of the run is. So if you're running first ending or any percent on PC or any category that doesn't involve the true ending, the timer is going to end when you interact with this thing and pick between one of the two endings. Because the timer ends as soon as possible, once you pick one of these endings, it doesn't matter which one you pick in any percent endings. However, in true ending, which I will be showing off the true ending, it is about 16 to 20 seconds faster to pick To Return the Sun, because there is a lot less dialogue before the actual credits start. And with that being said, the credits have started, so we get to watch them, and it's a nice little couple minute break before the true ending portion of the run starts. The big thing you want to do during the credits, if you haven't already, is this folder with the Clover file in it. You want to get ready to delete the save file, because once this credit sequence is over, that's when you need to delete the save file in order to go back into the game in the second run to get the second ending. That being said, though, while these credits roll is a great time for a break, for, to get water. It's a few minutes of credits we can't do anything about,
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to take a quick break just so everybody can, go get some water and everything. We'll see you in a few minutes.
So, you had your fun, you had your break. It is time to get back into the run. If you are running, again, as I mentioned, if you are running a first ending category in either game, this is where your first run ended at the beginning of these credits. However, the true ending is only just about to begin. As soon as you're on this screen of your credits, if you're holding your mash button down, the game will auto-close. This is where you need to delete your saved data and reopen and restart the game. This is one of the... I mentioned that there are a lot of things you can do in the PC version of the game in order to, not have to navigate your files, like programs that the community has made, or ways to find files just kind of in the game early, before they appear in their intended positions. Deleting your file is something you have to do on any version of the game that you're running. So, once you do that and you reopen the game, you're going to be back in the opening house. The opening house is mostly the same, except with one small change. Instead of needing the TV remote to get the computer password is just going to be the word solstice. So, we input that, and then we go through the opening house the exact same way as the first ending, grabbing the branch, grabbing the bottle from the fridge, and then making the torch for the fireplace. One thing you might notice is that we do have the journal already. Usually you get that from the safe in the Barrens, but we have it immediately. there's never really a point where it messes with our menuing. It usually stays in the back of our inventory, but we will need to open it up a few times. And I'll bring that up when we get there. So yeah, this is just still the same area as the very beginning of the run, so we do not need to do anything fancy. We just need to get the light bulb and get out the left side door. And this is kind of immediately where the route changes from the first ending. Once we get out of the house, we do not need to go up to the docks for the fast travel. We're just going to immediately run down right here. We want to make sure we're lined up with the top of the outpost here so that Profit Bot doesn't have to walk down to us. Click the third dialogue option again here. Press yes again, and then press start mashing cancel to get out of this dialogue selector here. I believe in the PC version of this game, I don't know if this was ever fixed, but you might need to activate all 4 dialogue options in that cutscene. But in this version of the game, you only need to do the third one. We want to fast travel out and back into the cliffs, so do the super fast travel again, and then do it a second time for the lookout point as well, once we get through the cliffs. We need to do this. So now, we talked to Silver. We don't need to grab a screwdriver. We just need to let Silver know that we've showed up, so that when we go to the mines, she'll come open the little rope for us, and we can get inside. And we don't need to pick up the camera. We just immediately want to rush this right side ledge. And this will lead to a pretty long cutscene. Okay, well, this one isn't that long, but a few pretty long cutscenes are coming up. The journal is going to light up. And if you see this clover on the ground, I'm hovering my mouse over it just to showcase it. Once this cutscene's over, we need to run over to the clover and open the book, and it'll spawn a minecart. And this is where the big differences in the first and second endings show up. So, once we're here, I'm going to hold right and turbo, and we will eventually get a pop-up text here. The way that this dialogue works, as you can tell, we do not mash it as fast as normal dialogue, and that is unfortunately a big part of what makes the true ending basically equal in length to the standard ending. In terms of this portion of the run. So, the true ending, yeah, there is a lot of cutscene, but there is still a few really important puzzles and routing that we need to make sure we do correctly. And a few things specific to World Machine Edition, which I will bring up. But for now, we have one of the biggest lore dumps in the whole game coming up in just a moment. First, we need to solve this puzzle, which has to do with the layout of the dormitories. Thankfully, this puzzle is, again, the same every time. You want to press A once to see a robot tile, 2 for a plus tile, and 3 for a lightning tile. And the solution is robot blank plus robot blank lightning. I think of it like a math equation in a really funny way. But this is the same every time, and then once we complete it, you can bring the memory disk to this computer, give the memory disk to Prototype here, and as I mentioned, this is a very, very long lore exposition dump where I get to hold the turbo button. So, thank you. Shout out to the devs for adding a turbo button to the game once again, because I like my wrists, generally. So I'm already holding down. Once this cutscene ends, we need to go back down. So as soon as it's over, which it will be soon, we walk down, Silver shows up, and they'll talk for a little bit longer. With that being done, though, we just need to go back to the minecart that we got to this part of the mines with, and this dialogue will prompt up again and cause a scene. So after a little bit more dialogue, the minecart is going to get squares, which is a big lore thing when it comes to squares, but basically they're unsafe. We don't want to touch them. So we need to find a different way to leave the mines. We are going to go to the top right here. We need to interact with Prototype. I like to do it from the top just because he walks through you in this cutscene if you do it from the top. But after he does that, you can pick up the minecart again and start heading to the right. And there is a little bit more cutscene. This area is, I think, even compared to like the ending of the true ending, the cutscene in this area is much longer. So somewhat unfortunate, but we're almost out of the longest haul of cutscene yet. After the cave collapses on Silver, we move to the right a tiny bit, and then the cave is also going to collapse on Prototype. Prototype is going to give us the memory disk, which is important, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to save the world in about 25 minutes. Closer to 20, but saving the world is good.
Usually, yeah.
I'm usually a fan, yeah. So, yeah, we have this big fade out, and once this big fade out's over, we will be back into playing the game, in which we have a small bit of a puzzle, and then more dialogue. Not as much dialogue as this area was, but still a fair bit. The true ending is very exposition-y, however, there was a bit of a category discussion when the World Machine Edition came out, because this ending was originally update content that came out a few months after the release of the Steam version. However, with World Machine Edition, it's been in the game since the very beginning of World Machine Edition, so it's a lot harder to ignore in a speedrun context. We need to interact with this robot, who is very broken right now. Otherwise, the robot in the ruins here, this one, won't let us through. But we need to go down to Calanus and Alula's house, which is in the bottom right of the ruins. So we get to the very bottom and then just start heading right, and we'll be there in no time. And then once we're here, we're going to go to an area that we actually never went to in the first ending portion of the run, which is the courtyard, which is to the right of this area here. There's an alternate route we used to do where we would go to the courtyard in the first ending. However, it ended up being just like objectively slower, so we don't do it anymore. And now we have a cutscene similar to the one we saw in the mines. We're going to see a vision, and then our journal's going to start glowing. This time, the clover's not as far away. It's just right here. Wrong way. There we go. And we're going to get on a boat. Funny story is the boat can't move up or down, but you can face up or down on the boat. It doesn't have anything to do with speedrun. I just think it's funny. So we have a little bit more cutscene, and then we're going to meet the second major true ending character at the southern portion of the graveyard here, which is Cedric. We'll see him in a moment. You want to make sure you're lined up decently vertically with him, otherwise he'll have to walk up or down a tile to talk to you, and that's a little bit of a time loss. But he has a pretty simple mission for us. We need to get a battery and some gears. So we are going to fast travel to the courtyard, and this is probably the most interesting, like, actual puzzle-solving routing in the true ending portion of the run. We need to go to the courtyard and then go to Maze. And Maze is, unlike in the first ending, where she retracted the vines for us, we need her to strengthen the vines. So we go up here. Cutscene starts. And we bring her the sun. And now we have access to the west part of the glen, so that's where we need to get both of the items we need. However, we still need to get out of here. And for a little bit of a time save, instead of walking to the top of the ruins, which is where we need to go because the other entrance to the ruins that we used is completely flooded right now, we can actually go to the courtyard and fast travel to the very west side of the gate. So that's a really important, it's like the most important fast travel in this ending. Then what you want to do is once you get onto the forest screen, you want to beeline straight to the left because you can get to the research facility. And then go to the generator in the research facility. You need to talk to this robot in order to be allowed to take the battery out of the generator. And then once you do that, you go back to the forest. And we can go to the dock from there. And as I mentioned, the northern part of the ruins are gone. So the dock is where the trader from earlier is. And if we just talk to him, we'll get a music box. And that music box is going to be what we use. When we give the music box to Cedric, he's going to take the gears out of them. So we give the music box to him and the charged battery. And then we have a little bit more of a cutscene while he repairs his plane. So that's like, funnily enough, that small portion where we have to pick up the battery and the music box is, off the top of my head, like, the order in which we do those things is one of the most rerouted things in the game. Because a lot of people would utilize super fast travels in both the research station and the docks. Some people, I think, still do. I think the fast travel point to the docks is different on PC, so it actually is faster, but on this version of the game, it's not. It's a surprisingly complicated, tiny little portion, and it's like probably the biggest time save time loss in the entire true ending portion of the run. So after a little bit more cutscene here, the plane is going to get corrupted. We're going to give Cedric the memory disk, and then we're going to need to try and find a third character in the grounded portion of the refuge, which means we're going to have to repair the elevator again. However, unlike last time, where the elevator was just kind of silly broken, it's Omega broken. Like, the panel is missing like last time. However, as soon as we try and interact with the elevator, it's out of commission. So what we need to do here is head to the offices, which are in the top right portion of the map. And I just missed the doorway. Okay. We need to go up to this room with the giant glowing lock on it, and it'll open automatically. I believe in the PC version, that doesn't open automatically. You need to put in the solstice password that you put in for the computer at the beginning of the run. But again, it's the same password, so it's not difficult. And then you interact with the right side elevator, and you're like, hey, we can't reach this handle, but that lamp guy is pretty tall. So, okay, D-pad moment there. We want to go back to the elevator deck, pick him up, and then bring him back to that elevator that we just went to. And he will be able to get us to the grounded part of the city. So we bring him over here. He's going to activate the elevator. And the grounded part of the city has a fairly big cutscene, but also has something really weird that I don't even remember if it was in the PC version or not. But it's a small time save that shows up in World Machine Edition that I will point out. However, in true Solstice route fashion, I guess you could say, we have a pretty long cutscene coming up. So we run down here, and Kip will be like, hey, it's not safe in the city right now. We need to get you to the library. So this one is too long with the turbo button. Nico just turns to the camera and says words for a little bit and then turns away from the camera, and we can move again. And now once we leave the library, for some reason, the small bit we spent on Vendor Street in the Solstice route allows us to fast travel there. Which, again, I don't think that was a thing in PC. So I'm not fully sure why it's here in this, but that makes the walk to this room in the back alley a lot faster, where we can pick up the third character I was talking about earlier, Rue. And then once we leave her tree room, we can fast travel back to this point on Vendor Street, and make the walk back to the tower a lot faster once again. So we can use this left elevator still into the Solstice room. And here's where you need to start getting one more folder set up. So you see these glowing lights in the middle of this room here. Essentially, before Cedric and Prototype come back, which they will both be back soon, we need to do this cutscene with Rue on the little viewing area here. It's a very pretty cutscene, but it is a cutscene. So once that's done, we walk down here. And now what we want to do is we want to make sure our folders are ready. Because when we enter this room, this portals folder shows up. There are 3 portals and a big portal. And we want to open a folder to have the big portal, and then keep these 3 portals individual. Because what we want to do is we want to drag the 3 keys from the separate portals into the big portal. So having the big portal open in a separate window is heavily recommended in order to streamline that process a fair bit. And once we do that, we get access into this room, where we can finally finish the game. That portal thing we did is the last, like, big puzzle. And it's another thing that in the PC version of the game shows up, like, as folders on your desktop, and you have to do that with your mouse. But once we close the game again, we are in the final stretch of the game. We have about 5 minutes until the run is over, and it is, like, all cutscene. So, not to get... I mentioned I wasn't going to get too much into the lore of the game here. One, because I definitely recommend playing the game yourself if you can, and two, because I've never been too great at explaining it, like, correctly. I always miss a detail, or 5. But essentially, we are going to try and fix the world, by talking to a giant computer that basically runs... I don't know the best way to put it. But essentially, this computer is kind of in charge of making the world work properly. And once we talk to them, we can run through the squares, and they will start breaking. And once we go down a few screens here, they're going to start talking to us. And we're going to get a little bit more credits. Not like the previous credits where it was all cutscene credits. However, we're going to be able to, like, walk over the credits and talk to some of the characters. We're not gonna talk to any of the characters except for this one, which the game makes us talk to. Thank you, Silver. But other than Silver, start running down. So I can take this credits time to point out where my name is. But, yeah. Other than that, we just need to run down in this screen here. I'll mention these things now. I just picked up a wallpaper. These are exclusive things to the World Machine Edition. There are wallpapers, color themes, and friend profiles. And they're like little collectibles you can use to decorate this desktop. I bring this up because this was a tutorial for any percent and first and true ending. However, this game does have 15 achievements, including the Platinum Trophy, for the 100% category of this game. And in the PC version, we just strictly have an all achievements category. That doesn't include these 3, because these 3 are exclusive to World Machine, but still has a bunch of collectibles and a bunch of side quests. So there's more to this game than just the any percent run. However, once we get through these credits, we can put the light bulb in the pedestal like we did during the first ending. And we have a pretty similar cutscene to the first ending, where instead of credits with names on them, we're going to get these shots of the squares disappearing from the sunlit areas. So, we're like a minute off being done now. There is a little bit more before the full time call. But For the most part, other than the final cutscene, which is there's no branching dialogue, it's just the turbo button and the A button. That is the full run of OneShot World Machine Edition. So if this is a game that you have interest in running, I definitely recommend it. It's a game I love to death, and it's a game that I think definitely showcases the lesser known aspects of what makes a speedrun, like what makes a speedrunner good at a game. Because like obviously in big games there are going to be things like the big tricks, maybe a specific like strat for a certain part of the game, but there's also equally important skills such as like menuing and small optimizations. And I think this game has a really good focus on a lot of aspects of speedrunning that casual viewers might not recognize the runner has like put just as much focus on as the big tricks. So if you definitely like want to get into speedrunning, I think this is a great game for practicing those smaller things that might be losing you minutes in other games without you realizing it all. That being said, though, yeah, this cutscene, there's a little more of it. Nico's going to start walking down, and this dialogue box right here, when you insert the goodbye Nico prompt, that's where the true ending timer usually stops. So that is the full tutorial for OneShot. Again, this run is very similar between the PC version and the World Machine Edition. So whichever one you end up picking up, if you do pick this game up, I hope this helps you in some way, because I love giving back to this community, and I love this game to death. Yeah, I believe that's all I have, really. So, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you so much. I love this game. This is such a great game.
Yeah.
I played it in, we actually talked about this before stream, 2018, and it is such a good game. I'd recommend anybody play it. If you want to speedrun it, feel free. I'm not going to tell anybody to speedrun a game, but I mean, definitely worth a casual playthrough.
For sure. Again, that's another reason I intentionally kind of didn't get into the lore, so you can experience it a bunch of yourself. If this was maybe your first time watching the game in the chat and you thought, hey, it looks cool. It is. It is very cool.
So that is all for the one-shot tutorial. We are going to take a quick break, and then we might be back with a little bit more. We'll see.